term component right now, of course, is natural gas storage. We have currently almost 3.6 trillion cubic feet of natural gas in storage. We will enter this winter heating season November 1st or whenever the net injections into storage stop at a record level for underground storage in the United States. Right now, storage levels are about 16% above the 5-year average and above this time last year. Remembering that this is the time of the year when the storage averages tend to begin to converge on each other because we're getting fuller and fuller. So it's remarkable that we're in this storage position right now. Companies have been putting gas, local gas utilities have been putting gas in storage over the summer. And as you know, compared to last year, those injections of natural gas have come at a slightly lower cost than we saw certainly last year. That's important because over the course of a winter heating season, we draw off somewhere between 15 and 20% of our gas supply from underground storage. If you look specifically at the peak winter heating season month, which is normally January, sometimes February, we can get as much as 30% of the nation's gas from underground storage. And for a specific company in one area, it may be 100% of their gas supply on a key day. So storage is very, very important. Prices have been coming down. This is a chart that shows the average acquisition price for natural gas at the wellhead from the peak in mid-2008 to the level that we saw them in June of 2009, a significant decrease. However, there are some expectations moving forward that we're going to see increases in natural gas prices for 2010. Now, why would that be? Well, clearly we have some expectations of declines in the supply side of natural gas as part of that rational market rationalization. In addition to that, there seem to be some small indications that we see on a daily and weekly basis that the economy is beginning to recover. When the economy recovers, there's an expectation then that large volume customers, particularly on the industrial side, are going to begin to demand and use a little more natural gas. So those two things together, in most cases, account for what is viewed as the potential for slightly higher prices in 2010. For consumers, this roller coaster that we've been on means many things. With respect to our companies tend to purchase their gas, the largest number of companies shown on this graphic, purchasing the largest volumes associated with the winter heating season based on the first of the month index. Now that does two things. One, the market price gets reflected back to consumers, and as we've seen over the course of this year, we've seen many PGAs, purchase gas adjustments, adjusted downward because of the fall in commodity prices. The other thing that the first of the month index does is it provides a benchmark for companies that use financial tools, not just physical tools like storage, but use financial tools to hedge their price to consumers, to try to take some of the peakiness off of the top and take some of that volatility out of the marketplace. That same purchasing practice, although there's a little more variety for the smaller volumes in storage injections, still many companies use that first of the month index in their storage injections too. So again, that tends to be reflected back into prices to consumers because the cost of the gas is a pass-through to the consumer. It is not marked up by the companies. We've had some very good news about natural gas supply in the country this year. The Potential Gas Committee from the Colorado School of Mines issued their report for year-end 2008, a report at which they examine the undiscovered resource base in the country every 2 years, taking into account the economics and technologies available to develop gas supply, and we've seen increases in that expectation of gas supply. And if you paid attention to some of our notices this year, where we were talking about or noting that with the EIA reserves and the PGC outlook for potential gas resources, that there was a 100-year supply of natural gas for consumers. That's very good news for consumers, and it's certainly that optimism has been reflected in the supply picture the last several years as we have seen these shale resources, other deepwater offshore resources, and other unconventional resources developed in the country. In the shorter term right now, as I noted before, it's very likely that natural gas demand is going to be the throttle around the price issue. Again, going back to the large volume customers, in comparing year over year natural gas consumption in the industrial sector from January through September 2008 compared to 2009, industrial consumption has been down about 6.4%, according to Bentech Energy. Since the industrial sector consumes a lot of gas, that's a big number. And it, of course, happened at a time when natural gas supplies were very solid and growing. And larger supplies, less demand, lower prices. If those flip-flop at all in the short term, we will see a price response. So this winter heating season is one we're going to have to watch again, remembering that last year essentially cost to consumers declined on a unit basis through the winter heating season. This year, obviously, we're going to need to look at that and examine that as it goes forward, but also understand that it is the weather. It is consumption. That is a big component of consumer bills. We have seen the average consumer in this country use less per year on a per consumer basis. It's been going along at a little over 1% per year decline in the average use per customer. Certainly customers are out there making every effort that they can to manage their own energy costs, and they do that with some exotic opportunities, but the traditional opportunities, higher efficiency appliances, more attention paid to their building shell, to their living space in terms of insulation, and then all of the conservation and other efficiency opportunities that are out there too. Dan, we've clicked out again. I'm actually at the end of my talk. Roger Cooper is going to talk to you a little bit about some longer-term issues, and I think a key word you'll see in his expressions is volatility.
Thank you, Chris. For the last decade, since the winter of 2000-2001, we've seen great volatility in natural gas prices. If you go back for the decade of the 1990s, you saw the opposite. Relatively flat, stable prices, some fluctuation based on weather. And looking down the road over the next decade, are we going to have a decade more like the 90s or more like the last decade in terms of price volatility? Well, the safe and probably smart answer is to say the future looks like the current trends. There's factors that would suggest continuing volatility. The traditional factors that Chris talked about, demand is the driver, it depends on the weather, it depends on the economy. And then we were going to add, at some point, climate change legislation, presumably a cap and trade bill, but possibly a